Hello, fellow travelers. This is Veronica from Human Design Journey, and we're going to look at the weekly transit. Mm, the sun moved into the 51st gate, the gate of the shock, the gate of the arousing, the ability to respond to disorder and shock through recognition and adaptation. So it's in the ego center, and it's actually the shamanic gate, the warrior gate, um, which is actually in the 25th gate, the shaman and the priestess, but on the other side is the warrior. And it's one of the mystical channels altogether. And the arousing, it empowers a direction of love, of life itself. And it's constant challenge to survival at the end. Mm, this is the gate of individual initiative. It's the only gate of the heart center that is not part of the ego circuit, actually. And it embodies the power to compete. Uh, so the gate of shock, both trigrams are thunder uh, over thunder. You can see here. So it really has the quality of arousing the energy, being part of the channel of initiation, one of the three mystical channels, and the potential in the power to leap into the void without knowing. And just at the end, innocence is what should land on its feet on the other side. It's the gate of wounding. The warrior and the fool can do great damage because the heart is not an awareness center. And yet, without this competitive drive, there is no centering in our evolutionary process. So, the arousing is needing to be first, and at the same time, doing it in an innocent way, which means basically following your strategy and authority and being your authentic self and not trying to compete, because usually like 65% of people, they have open ego center. So usually these will be out of not self strategy to overcompensate by being super competitive. So let's look at the lines. The first line yesterday, reference the advantage of previous crisis experience. And we had it in the exaltation, the gift of re-examination, that is the foundation of preparedness, the power of the ego conditioned by experience, and the detriment, the tendency to emotional withdrawal after shock, the weakness of the ego in times of challenge. In the first line, it goes from weakness to strength, from inexperience to experience. So as weakness and strength will be something it resonates with. So that's in the air as energy, shocking energy, which is looking for experience in the crisis. And we also have, let's not forget, the 36 gate, the darkening of the light. So all this mutative and shocking gates, and it's all part of a sequence, actually. It's mathematically calculated in a way, you can say, like nature in general. And it's all preparing us for what is coming. So today the second line, withdrawal. Mm, so it's the recognition of the mechanics of shock that indicates when withdrawal is the only logical action, the instinctive withdrawal when the power of the ego is threatened. Second line, ultimately shy, being too smart for one's own good and rejecting withdrawing the vain belief that one can outsmart natural forces. The egoism to reject withdrawal and face possible defeat. Doing it in a hermit way, wanting to be left alone, and being naturally shocking, just with being yourself, being shocking with your withdrawal. And on the other hand, not wanting to withdraw, which can trying to outsmart the natural forces and being one step ahead, overcompensating, and being overly competitive. The third line, adaptation, tomorrow. So we will experience the energy of the life-sustaining awareness that thinks on its feet and thus creates opportunities, the power of spontaneity in times of challenge. And the other side, the destabilization that occurs when one's field of normal activity is radically and unpredictably disturbed, where the tendency is withdrawal rather than adaptation. The ego that may be destabilized in times of challenge. And adaptability, maybe discovery. In synchronicity with the third line notes. Then we go into limitation, the fourth line, waiting for the opportunity, being fixed, a pure inventiveness and sometimes genius to find some opportunity even in the midst of the most devastating shocks. The warrior ego that will find some way to answer the challenge. A reason-make-do mentality that is infectious in times of severe shock. The superficial ego that lacks the resources and depth to answer challenges. So, it will be about trying to transfer your influence to the other side with the base and understanding you have of what's to be willful about and to be competitive about. So this gate can really make people competitive, especially with an open ego, and especially if you have the opposing 25th gate, the harmonic. Then we have the fifth line, symmetry, perfected illumination that in grasping the nature of the shock can transform the normal patterns into a symmetrical adaptation that rides the shock and avoids its devastation. The perfection of the warrior ego through instinctive adaptation. Self-explanatory here. Sixth line, separation in times of crisis when all those around are confused and in disorder, the ability not to succumb to the panic, but to have will and vitality to survive it alone. The power of the ego to meet challenges alone. So this is what's going on this week, and this energy, the life force and expression energy, which will be the strongest in the air, is being grounded in the 57th gate, the gentle, the gate of intuitive clarity. So the 57th gate, it's in the spleen center. It's part of the individual circuit, so it's very acoustic. It can be mm, mutative and melancholic when nothing happens, nothing changes. So it's part um, of several actually channels. The brainwave, which is awareness in the now, the power, and the archetype here. It's the only connection to the direct connection to the circle center. Then we have the 1057, which is the perfected form, a design of survival. And it's part of the knowing circuit. So this is a very special gate. It's the name is gentle as mm, a very yang energy. If you look at it's yeah. Um, it starts with in actually, but it's mountain, still mountain on top of mountain. Mm, which stillness, immobility. Um, but on the other hand, it's intuitive clarity. It's very intuitive. It's part of the stream of intuition. It's the awareness to struggle for knowing or not, and the fear of the future. Its gift is the intuitive insight and the capacity to penetrate to the core in the now. It is the possibility to transform the lessons learned in the trial and error struggle. And it's a very complex gate that connects to three different centers. So, it's also connected to hearing, um, and the hearing can be selective. It's basically hearing in the now, the gate of the right ear, and the maximization of the intuitive clarity demands existential attention in the now. Because also the spleen has a very silent voice. Mm, it needs attention and can be easily overwhelmed by other emotions, thoughts, and hurry, adrenaline, etc. And the hunch to be easily ignored. But when focused and anchored in the now, there is no fear of the tomorrow, and there is an intuitive clarity, or not, on the other hand. So this is where we're being grounded. And let's look at the lines. So we have yesterday, the first line, confusion, the gift of penetrating to the inner meaning that ensures timely action, the possibility of the intuition penetrating to the inner meaning. And the moon in detriment where feelings are not substitute for clarity and can lead to indecision. The possibility that confusion will overpower the intuition. Thinking too much and getting confused when you didn't do your research and introspection. Um, and really having a stable base. Then today it's the second line, cleansing. The clarity to establish proper values and ideals must be accompanied by resolute determination to maintain them. Perfected cleansing through inner realization, the possibility for proper values and ideals through intuition. A superficial cleansing that tends to hide the dirt underneath the carpet. The possibility that the depth of the intuition will be treated superficially. Cleansing or not, having clarity and establishing proper values and ideals, or through intuition or not. and just sticking your dirt under the carpet, pretending it's not there. That's today's energy. Um, yeah, together with the withdrawal, they go perfectly fine together. So imagine if you're just a puppet on strings, living these energies and not living your authentic life. It can become a real mess. Tomorrow, acuteness, the third line, trial and error process, the perfected intelligence where clarity eliminates doubt and ensures manifestation, the possibility of perfected intuition. Mm, yeah, this is really a magical line, and mm, it's so it can be very much magical in the sense of to really be able to foresee what's coming. And if you're attuned to the now, mm, you have a hunch. It's an interesting line. The fourth line, the director, and can lead to discoveries, really to discoveries. The third line, the most mutative. Fourth line, the director, the mastery of relationships that through clarity can maximize productivity, while the sensitivity to interrelationships will ensure harmony, the possible intuitive clarity to master relationships, a tendency given the position to be dictatorial, dictatorial rather than directorial. So to be like a dictator rather than manager, with the gift of clarity to master relationships, the possibility of being intuitively dictatorial. Yeah, and the fourth line can be very fixed, of course, and hence it waits for its opportunity. It can be the right thing to transfer and to the other and to mm, be contagious with their ideas and their perspective on the world somehow. The fifth line, progression, the natural ability to establish new forms while maintaining the powers of reevaluation and re-examination. This provides the clarity to examine the data and assess the processes, the possible intuitive gift for evaluation. And the other side, the tendency to keep on keeping on that can end up as a misguided missile. When in action, the intuition may become overwhelmed and unable to assess and evaluate its progress. And spontaneity can kill you. So you can be under the um, feeling that you have the potential to express your inner knowing, which can make you in the now, which can make you impatient and your possible intuitive gift might be a misguided missile if it's not the correct thing. So it's all up to your strategy and authority. Then we have the sixth line, utilization, the acceptance that clarity is a double-edged sword. There are situations where understanding cannot lead to rectification. Here, Uranus' innovative quality can generally make the best out of an otherwise difficult but rarely permanent situation. Where there is no answer, only the possibilities of the intuition can make the best out of a difficult situation. And the other side, when clarity points to a problem one is unable because of circumstances to solve, a tendency to anger and frustration that provokes inevitability, futile action, the possibility that when the intuition cannot solve a problem, a tendency to frustration and anger. So this is grounding energy, And it's about the well-being and trying to outguess the future as to be able to have a better future. And all of this is happening in the circumstances and background frequency in the third line of the 27 gate. Nourishment, greed, the gate of caring in the line greed, the obsession with having much more than one needs. The secret policeman, the power derived from having more than one needs, or the other side, the mundane and wholly without redeeming value greed, a lust that inevitably cripples and addicts. The lust for the power to get more than one needs. And the 28th gate, the preponderance of the great, the gate of the game player, again in the spleen center, third line adventurism, unfounded risk-taking, or not taking the risk, like staying necessary prudent, an intuitive caution in risk-taking in times of struggle, and basic conservatism, or the other side, perverse manifestation and intuitive rationalization of risk-taking in times of struggle, and of course, taking unnecessary risks. The gate of the fear of death, and really it's part of the channel of struggle, and it can get you into a life and death situation moment. So something to be aware about. The 32nd gate duration, the moon is here now. Second line restraint, so it will be here like only for today. It's not for the entire week. The control of power for the benefit and enhancement of harmony, the potential for transformation that may be beneficial to others, or the other side, the tendency in frustration, particularly from a position of strength to social withdrawal rather than persistent control. The frustration with controls or being controlled. Being part of the ambition channel. Which is tribal energy. And it is the driving force in the air right now. Actually, it's the second line, the hermit. So really the control and restraint of power for the benefit of the harmony, or the tendency and frustration to withdraw, which is what might be the best to do. If that's not, if this is nothing there for you to do. So the same about greed, we're going to be hearing in the air because Mercury is there, so that's what people will be talking about. And also values, holding together the gate of contribution in the first line, honesty, the truthful acceptance of limitation and recognition that it can only be transcended through sharing. The awareness that the whole is always greater than the sum of its parts, knowing that creative expression must be honestly communicated and shared. And withdrawal, the fear of losing individuality in a group environment, the design to share creativity at the expense of individuality. So a lot of withdrawal here going on. The natural withdrawal, to stand alone and be individual, rather than project outside, be cold, and if it's for you, answer the call. But here's the first line, so it's investigation. It's about having a solid base, introspection, and in this case, honesty. It brings honesty. The Martian energy, the explosive and immature energy dynamics is in keeping still mountain, the gate of stillness. So here we have so we have here mountain over mountain, and we have here thunder over thunder. And it's interesting because in the third line, controls, external enforcement of inaction, the ability by its very nature to understand restraint with the potential in the acceptance to use the period to redefine strategies, the energy for acceptance in inaction, a deep dissatisfaction which controls the disturbed tranquility leads to emotional withdrawal and affects vision. The pressure of restraint disturbs tranquility. And we have Uranus also in the 51st, the arousing in separation. We saw that when we're looking at the sun, the 10 times of Christ, when all those around are confused and in disorder, the ability to succumb to the panic, but to have the will and vitality to survive it alone. Saturn will be disciplining us and limiting us in the fourth line, assimilation. Our spirit and abundance will be tested in the establishment of a framework that balances principles with energy and leads inevitably to expansion and prosperity, or boundless energy that knows no restraint. Boundless energy that ignores awareness at the risk of the spirit. Hence, the opportunity and the network will present such maybe limitations and assimilation. The Uranus and Uranus, chaos and innovation is in the second line, fifth line, intelligent application. The strategist with Mercury exalted, reasoned management of resources, higher knowing as a gift for strategy. The inability to share responsibility or recognize the abilities of others. Higher knowing as an exclusively individual and selfish process. Well, that's me. That's where my personality sun is. And it's really looking for the most beautiful way. You see here is the gate of the chauffeur, the gate of the driver, higher self, the higher knowing, and looking for the best application, the intelligent application, the best management of resources, or being so individualistic in your own knowing that you don't want to share even. It's a very individual gate, and sometimes it's melancholic. So it's about being in your own creative process. And yet, if you don't share it, it will be lost. Yeah, so we still have some direction. And in the fifth line, the most exalted. In the air, we are being mutated. Having also the Pluto in the 60th gate, fifth line as well, leadership. So truth transformation psychology is about the awareness that the destruction of the old limitations simply creates new ones. The result in behavioral patterns that demonstrate the understanding through actions and enhances leadership potential. The energy to handle a lifelong process of dealing with limitations. And the other side, where the natural desire for expansion, when limitations are essential, creates confusion from the top. Expansive energy that cannot handle limitations. We definitely, via shock and intuition, intuitive knowing, greed, and risk-taking, ambition at this moment, and contributing, being withdrawn and separated, knowing what to do in times of panic, actually knowing how to stay still is an expansive and very resourceful energy, being limited in the spirit and abundance, where the emotional awareness and energy are balanced and principled, or not, at the risk of the spirit not knowing when to stop, still having some direction in the darkening of the light, crisis in the espionage line, the ability to prepare for and anticipate decline through the accumulation of secret or privileged information, the realization that knowledge, both covered and esoteric, is necessary for if one is to be prepared for crisis and change, the tendency in recognizing the strengths of the opposition to accept the inevitability of decline, and rather than resist, to offer one's services to guarantee survival. The double agent, crisis knowledge that is available to others for price. Quite, should I say, strong energy with secretiveness to it, and mystical aspects. We see crisis, shock, greed, espionage, those very shocking names, and apparently something's going on. Apparently we are in such critical and shocking times that require us to find ways through limitations and expand our horizons and transcend via acceptance and of what is, via acceptance of what we are, and one with the flow of life, true to our own inner meaning of the inner understanding of the meaning of the whole movie that we have in front of our eyes. But that can only happen if we are tuned to our own frequency, so that we can see the movie for what it is, rather than live it out as influenced from the outside frequencies, which control now the environment, and push you to maybe do or not do things which might be correct or incorrect. So the only thing which allows us to truly be on the correct geometry and fractal line is our strategy and authority, as always, our inner anchor for this life, in this meat suit. This is Veronica from Human Design Journey. And if you want to know more about the transit field and how we're influenced by the planet every week, you can like and subscribe to my video blog, and also to my Instagram page, Human Design Journey, or Facebook page with the same name. I'll be glad to see you there to comment and yeah, share more. That's all for today. I'll be glad to be here next week with more. Bye for now.